followed by Kuala Lumpur, Putrajaya, Sabah, Perak and Kelantan. Over 65% of the HFMD outbreaks happened in kindergartens, nurseries or preschools. The ministry also disclosed a jump in the number of dengue cases last week by 51.5% to 1,074 cases compared to the previous week. The total cumulative cases reported so far is 14,725, a 45% jump from the same time last year. It also said 9 dengue-related deaths were recorded last week. Terengganu had the highest number of dengue cases since the start of the year at over 10,000, followed by Kuala Lumpur and Putrajaya. Malaysia is not at risk of recession and is on track to meet forecast economic growth targets of between 5.3% and 6.3% this year. Finance Minister Tengku Datuk Seri Zafrul Aziz noted that the current talk of a global recession was premature and unwarranted.
However, we remain wary of potential downside risks. There's a downside risk such as a protracted war in Ukraine, high commodity prices and global monetary policy tightening. As a result, the government will need to ensure adequate fiscal flexibility in the future to manage such risks. So this is why we intend to gradually reduce the fiscal deficit from 6.4% in 2021 to 6% in 2022. And also rationalizing a more targeted way of subsidies. So failure to meet debt obligation is a major risk for countries in the event of a global recession, but it's not a risk for Malaysia. This risk is mitigated because of our relatively low exposure of external debt. In fact, less than 3% of our external debt is in foreign currency, and we have ample domestic liquidity to finance the government's and private sector's borrowing needs.
Zafrul also highlighted how the Malaysia's top 20% earners are enjoying the bulk of government fuel subsidies. For every RM1 of fuel subsidy, 53 cents go to the T20, while only 15 cents benefit the P40. He said the rich have benefited from more than half of the RM4 billion the government has spent on petroleum subsidies in the first 3 months of this year alone. Zafrul added that the government is revising the current blanket subsidy for electricity and petrol to be more targeted on those who need them. This is because the subsidy bill is ballooning due to rising energy prices globally. In February 2021, Malaysia's petroleum subsidy was RM200 million. But in January this year, it cost the government RM2 billion to keep prices at the current capped levels. Malaysia's petroleum subsidies bill could more than double to RM28 billion this year, as crude oil prices passed the $100 mark following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The Cabinet has approved the setting up of state economic recovery committees. At the National Recovery Council meeting today, Chairman Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin said this would help speed up the country's overall recovery process.
Jadi setengah-setengah masalah itu bukan masalah nasional, masalah berkaitan dengan negeri atau masalah berkaitan dengan soal kawasan-kawasan tempatan. Jadi kesemua ni akan ada kesan kepada secepat mana negara boleh pulih. Sebab itu kita dah bersetuju, Kabinet juga sudah bersetuju, cuma nak menunggu Perdana Menteri menandatangani surat supaya kerajaan negeri nanti akan membentuk Majlis Perubahan Negeri itu dalam tempoh yang terdekat.
Muhyiddin said the council also discussed the war in Ukraine and the COVID-19 lockdown in China, which could affect the food supply chain and accelerate inflation. Muhyiddin also urged the government to reactivate the Special Council on Food Security to increase food production in Malaysia, citing how food security is a global problem and Malaysia is not immune from it. He also added that the council will hold its inaugural conference at the year end to further help map out the nation's recovery. Malaysia's air passenger traffic is forecast to hit between 32 and 49 million this year. Transport Minister Datuk Sri Wee Ka Siong said this would mark a 30 to 45% recovery from the pre-pandemic levels in 2019. In 2019, the number of passenger movements at airports in Malaysia was recorded at 109.5 million before dropping sharply to 35.5 million in 2020. Malaysia recorded only 11 million air passenger traffic last year. WE calls for health protocols imposed for air travel to be consistent, simpler and more predictable. This includes allowing vaccinated individuals to travel without additional measures, avoiding on-arrival testing and using pre-departure antigen tests for non-vaccinated passengers. We were speaking at the Changi Aviation Summit 2022 in Singapore. The Fire and Rescue Department has identified several hotspots at risk of fires during the hot and dry season, expected to last till September. Its Director General, Datuk Seri Muhammad Hamdan Wahid, said his department would monitor the areas and has prepared their personnel and required assets. The hotspots are in Banteng, Sepang and Johan Setia in Selangor, as well as in Miri and the central region of Sarawak and the south of Sabah. Hamdan said his department will collaborate with MAT Malaysia and other related agencies for large-scale disaster management, including forest fires and structure fires. Locals are also encouraged to assist authorities if fire occurs, especially in areas with challenging topography. The southwest monsoon began last Saturday and is expected to continue till mid-September. This will cause most places throughout the country to go for many days without rain. How accurate are the assumptions that Chinese voter sentiment has shifted towards pessimism and indifference? Tonight on Consider This, we speak to analysts about the dynamics shaping voter participation among the Chinese community. We'll continue after the break. Stay with us.
Melindungi anda dan seisi keluarga dalam ruang tertutup. Panasonic.
Jualan Riang Raya Maxis. Bawa pulang peranti idaman baharu hanya RM50 sebulan dengan Maxis Home Fiber hari ini.
Welcome back. Authorities in Los Angeles said the suspect in a church shooting appeared to be motivated by hate towards the Taiwanese people. The gunman, identified as David Cho, padlocked a church and opened fire on its Taiwanese American congregation, killing one person and injuring 5 others. Orange County Police said 68-year-old Cho left notes in his car stating he did not believe Taiwan should be independent from China. China considers Taiwan a breakaway province and has grown increasingly aggressive about reclaiming the island.
That this individual was acting alone, and we do know that based on information we've collected, and I'm not going to go into the details of that evidence, was a politically motivated hate incident, a grievance that this individual had between himself and the Taiwanese community at large.
In the incident on Sunday afternoon, the suspect chained shut the doors of the church before shooting at a gathering of mostly elderly Taiwanese parishioners, killing a man who tackled him. The FBI has opened a federal hate crimes investigation into the shooting. Sri Lanka's new Prime Minister says the country is down to its last day of petrol as it faces its worst economic crisis in more than 70 years. In a televised address, Ranil Wickremesinghe said the nation urgently needs $75 million of foreign currency in the next few days to pay for essential imports. In the capital Colombo, vehicles have been queuing at petrol stations. Wickremesinghe, who was appointed Prime Minister on Thursday, however said shipments of petrol and diesel using a credit line with India could provide fuel supplies in the next few days. He added the country's central bank would have to print money to help pay the government's bill and other commitments, but the move would lead to the depreciation of the rupee. He also proposed selling of Sri Lankan Airlines as part of efforts to stabilize the nation's finances. In recent weeks, there have been large protests against President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and his family. Last week, the president's elder brother, Mahinda, resigned as prime minister after government supporters clashed with protesters, killing 9 people. On to the Ukraine-Russia crisis. Ukraine's military is working to evacuate all remaining troops from their last stronghold in the port city of Mariupol, ceding control to Russia. The evacuation of hundreds of fighters likely marked the end of the longest battle of the Ukraine war and a significant defeat for Ukraine. Ukraine confirmed that more than 260 fighters, including some who were badly wounded, were evacuated from the Azovstal steel plant in Mariupol and taken to areas under Russia's control late Monday. Ukrainian Deputy Defense Minister Anna Malya said all of the evacuees will be subject to a potential prisoner exchange with Russia. The Azovstal plant has become a symbol of resistance, with hundreds of troops continuing to fight there even after the rest of the city had fallen to Russian forces. Taking the city would allow Russia to have a land corridor between the Crimean and Donbas region, which is led by pro-Russian separatists. French President Emmanuel Macron appoints Elisabeth Borne as the new Prime Minister on Monday, becoming only the second woman in history of the country to hold the post. Borne succeeds Jean Castex, whose resignation paved the way for a cabinet overhaul after Macron's re-election last month. She will seek to make a greater impact than France's first female Prime Minister, Edith Cresson, who lasted less than a year under President François Mitterrand and quit amid a corruption scandal. Borne joined Macron's centrist party in 2017 and was the transport minister first before being appointed as Minister of Ecological Transition. She then served as Labour Minister in Macron's previous government. Her first mission will be to make sure that Macron's centrist party and its allies do well in France's parliamentary election in June. Japan will allow small groups of tourists on package tours into the country this month on an experimental basis. Tourists have not been permitted to enter Japan since it adopted strict border controls in 2020 at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. Travellers from 4 countries, the US, Australia, Thailand or Singapore, who have received 3 vaccination shots and have medical insurance will be allowed in as small groups on package tours. These groups will need preset itineraries and must be accompanied by travel agency staff. This is Japan's first step in welcoming back foreign travellers ahead of its border reopening slated for June. While Japan had loosened regulations slightly to allow students and some business travellers to enter, individual tourists remain barred despite calls from industry leaders hoping to restart tourism to take advantage of the yen, which has fallen to 20-year lows. That is all we have for you on AWANI tonight. I'm Farhana Sheikh. Thank you for watching.